Hi friends, welcome back to Building in a Small Town. My guest today is Matt Cleverly of Gotcha Amusements. I messed up the name when we first started, but he talks about the evolution from Gotcha Games to Gotcha Amusements and why he really needed to rebrand. Matt is a natural tinkerer who has gradually gone from moonlighting in the inflatables business to striking out on his own with laser tag. In this episode, you'll find out how Matt got started in the amusement industry, how much it costs to insure a mechanical bull for a year, and what COVID was like for a company that relies entirely on in-person events. It was pretty cool for me to get to know my neighbor a little bit better, and I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. Before we get into the episode, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for listening and ask you to make sure that you're subscribed on whatever your listening platform. While you're at it, if you could also drop a quick rating and review, that's a simple, free way to support the show, and it helps others find the show. Thank you again, and let's get into it. Welcome to Building in a Small Town, where we're talking to entrepreneurs, community leaders, policymakers, and more to find out how they're building things in small towns. I'm your host, Shelby Smith. All right, hello and welcome back to the Building in a Small Town podcast. Today I am joined by another Collins local of sorts, at least Collins-based business. I have Matt Cleverly of Gotcha Games. You had quite the commute to get here this morning, didn't you?
Yeah, the traffic was terrible.
Yeah,
it was faster to walk than it was to drive, so...
For those of you who are not in Collins and or don't have any reference of how far away Matt is from me here, it's maybe 100 feet, maybe 150, depending on which corner of the building you started in.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Matt is the owner of Gotcha Games, which, how would you describe Gotcha Games?
We're a carnival.
Carnival.
Yep.
On wheels.
Yep.
Yes, traveling carnival.
Yep.
So, if you ever come to Collins and you see a bunch of carnival rides parked, you know what it is. So Matt, you're not originally from Collins?
No, I'm from Ames originally.
Okay.
So
born and raised.
Grew up there, and then until I moved here.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago.
Did you go to Ames High?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you like it?
It was all right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then when you were in Ames, what did you do? Did you end up going to college? Did you go to Iowa State?
No, I took a little bit of time at DMAC doing something I didn't want to do.
What was that?
It was building trades.
Okay.
So construction.
Just general construction.
Yeah.
And what did you not like?
I grew up, my dad was a carpenter and he did all kinds of remodeling and projects like that. And I'd always help him out. And so when I was taking the classes, it was just like repeating everything that I've already learned.
Yeah.
And I just was looking at it going, why am I even doing this? I'm not going to make a career out of this, I don't think. So
Did you not think that you were going to make a career out of it because you didn't really like it? Or
no, I liked doing it, but it just, the monotony, just doing learning the same things that you already know.
Yeah.
You were wondering, didn't interest me.
Why you were paying for it at that point, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So did you like just finish a semester and say,
No, I was like mid-semester and I just
said no.
Yep.
And so when you, was it just like general carpentry classes? I didn't even know you could take those at DMAC.
It was construction. So like framing and every bit of it is what they kind of go over.
And were you in like a classroom setting? I feel like something like that.
Some of it was classroom setting, and then they had a shop that you'd go out and do work in, and they'd have set projects that you'd have to do in the shop, and then you'd get graded on those projects along with, there was the business aspect of things too that they would go over, and how to do quotes and how to run the business.
Yeah. And so were you already familiar, like had your dad run you through that whole process of quote? I mean, that's got to be at least valuable.
Yeah. That was probably the more valuable thing that I was interested in there, rather than doing all the shop projects.
The things you were already well aware of how to do, and
Yep.
just going, why are you going to grade me on this? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. But like I said, I guess I didn't realize it makes sense with all the things that DMAC has to offer
Yeah.
that they would have classes like that. Okay, so you don't even make it a full semester in that before you're like, this is not going to be my thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you leave DMAC.
Yep.
And then what? Do you go work for Dad? And you're like, I just learned all these things.
Well, no, he worked for the Ames schools and then did projects on the side for some of the teachers and people that he knew and stuff like that.
Okay.
And anyway, I worked with him a little bit and worked for a couple other contractors, and then got a job at Honda of Ames, and I was a mechanic there for quite a while. And then I went and worked at a couple of other shops, and after that, went to work for the school for a little while, and then started with laser tag while I was working for a inflatable company, and I liked doing it, but didn't necessarily like working for that guy. And then started out the laser tag business, and then it's just grown from there.
Yeah. Okay. So were you mechanically inclined growing up? I imagine you had. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I imagine just based off of what you said, you kind of seemed to me like you just like to work with your hands.
Yep.
And you kind of know how things work. Did your dad teach you the mechanic
he taught me
stuff?
a lot of stuff. Well, he wasn't necessarily a mechanic, but he could do some things. And then my brother did quite a bit of stuff. He had a bunch of Volkswagens when he was in high school, and he'd be out in the garage working on them, and I'd go out there and help him every once in a while
and hold whatever
then,
needed to be held.
Yeah.
Hold the light.
Yeah. And he got into building recumbent bicycles.
Okay.
And I built one when I was in high school. He built several while he was in high school. And then my dad built a few here in about 2010 or so, and made them electric bikes, and made one for my sister. And
But they're recumbent electric bikes.
Yeah,
Ooh.
like 3-wheel recumbents.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about a recumbent electric. I feel like that almost feels like it's starting to be a go-kart at that point.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. I don't know. So why recumbents though? Like, was just something different that they preferred?
Different. Yeah.
Okay.
They're comfortable to ride.
Yeah, and it was. Were they building them to sell them, or were they
No.
just building them for
just
themselves?
for ourselves.
Okay, so kind of natural tinkerers.
Yep.
Like you just like to tinker.
Yep.
Sort of a thing.
Yep.
So then, did you do any sort of like formal training for the mechanic side, or was like when you started working with Honda of Ames, were they like on the job training?
When I was in high school, I took auto mechanics, which the years that I was in high school, the teacher that had done it for the last 20 years retired. So the new teacher that came in said, bring whatever you've got in and we'll figure out how to fix it and we'll work with you.
That's cool.
And I learn a lot better doing things that way than someone saying, here's the book, read it, then we'll go out and do this in the shop.
Yeah.
And it worked out really good. And then that teacher, he quit or left or whatever. They put him somewhere else, whatever they did with him. But anyway, a new teacher came in the next year. So the second year of auto mechanics, the teacher just kind of did the same thing because he was just like, I don't know what to do. I've never taught this class before. I don't know that much about mechanics. So
yeah,
you tell me what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Basically to the class.
You guys, so essentially you were taking whatever you learned in that first
Right.
year and teaching this
Yeah.
teacher of like, here's what we learned.
Yep.
Here's the basics.
Yep. So we were in the shop class, we were doing everything. I
Yeah.
mean, whatever we wanted to fix on a car, we were learning how to do it.
That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
So, did they give you any, I don't imagine they probably did at that time, of like, now it might be the case that like DMAC partners with somewhere like Ames High, and so a class like that would give you actual college credit.
The reason I went into the building trades program at DMAC was because in high school they had a building trades class that added to DMAC credits, and I was taking that for 2 years before going to DMAC.
Right. So you already had some built up. So you're
Yeah.
like, I've already started this. I
Yeah.
might as well kind of continue it.
Yep.
And then, so when you actually got to DMAC, then was it just a different style? Like, was it that style of like, hey,
It was totally different than the building trades program at the school, because at the school it was more of, we were going out and building houses and building garages and stuff around town, that we would go to the job site rather than going to a classroom.
it felt more practical and hands-on, and
Yeah.
you were actually doing something?
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder. So this is not the first. So the contractors who helped us, you know, do this building and stuff in Jefferson at Greene County, they do that same thing where they take the students essentially, and the school partners with the contractor, and they go work on whatever project. And I just think that's a great way to learn the practical skills and it not feel like, hey, I just built this truss for no reason in this school shop kind of thing. Like, you actually get to see it in action.
Yep.
So that's the second time I've heard it. I just think that's a really good program. I wonder why DMAC doesn't just kind of carry that over.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
DMAC, if you're listening, take some notes. This is maybe how you want to think about doing it. Okay, so that's where you kind of get your informal, formal mechanic training, if you will.
Then when I worked at Honda dealer, they would send you to Chicago for training, and then there was a lot of online testing that we would do at the dealership on days that we didn't have a lot in the shop. So we'd go up to Chicago for a week every year for Honda training. So,
and was a lot of that on the computer at that, like learning the computer
at the learning
diagnostic?
facility? They had some testing, but most of the computer stuff you would do at the dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so the testing, the online testing was all done at the dealership. You'd go up to Chicago and they would have cars sitting there. They had probably 100 cars sitting in this shop, and they all had preset problems that you'd have to figure out.
Yeah.
And so when I went up there, I did all the electrical side of things, getting Honda certified in all the electrical. So that's what my focus was when I went up there.
So anything that from power windows to power steering to
computers and
all of that.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
And that essentially, if you don't have a knowledge of that, anything from maybe 2000 on, you can't fix.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's...
Well, with scan tools and the computers that they have in them nowadays, they can pretty much diagnose almost anything. But you have to be able to understand what some of the codes are and what they mean and what they could be. So,
yeah. Even if it doesn't kick it out in the computer and tell you exactly what it is at the time. So would you say... Did you strategically choose that because you saw that?
No,
or
it was something that they wanted someone to focus on, and I said, well, I'll do it. So
yeah, somebody had to step up and give it a try. Okay, so how long were you at Honda of Ames then? 5
or 6 years, something like that.
And do you like Hondas? Do you think they're well built?
They used to be. I don't know now. I worked at the Honda dealership in Marshalltown for a winter during COVID, and I was a service writer there. So I saw it from a different aspect and some of the stuff that was getting repaired, and I don't think they're quite as good as they used to be.
Interesting. In what way?
So they've changed motors. They've changed design on the motors and stuff, and I don't know that it's necessarily better. But
probably
the older ones are probably a lot more reliable, better built, better materials. And the newer ones are a lot more plastic in them and cheaper materials.
And do you know,
But that's any cars.
I was going to say.
So
I think that's
it's not just Hondas.
Yeah, but so do you know, do you know when that shift was between the different motor?
I'm not sure.
I was going to say, I didn't know if it was a 2010 thing. Should I be looking for an 08 Honda? What's going to be my most reliable option if I'm going the used market kind of thing? I think, honestly, I think that's just about anything anymore is our washing machine broke for the second time in 6 months. Thankfully it had a 5-year full warranty. comes up in July, so I know I'm thinking August 1st we're gonna have it break again. But the thing that it was like the motor on the pump, on the drain pump, the head just snapped off of it. And the guy was just like, you just did too much laundry. I was like, what do you mean? I said, was it something I did? Like, are the loads laundry I'm doing too big? He said, no, they don't build them like they used to. Like, it's just not the same quality. Yeah. You would think if you're going lower quality, we'd maybe be dropping in price a little bit, but that doesn't seem to be the case, unfortunately. Yeah. So, okay, you're working at the Honda dealership, and then is that when you leave the Honda dealership to then go work for the schools?
Well, I left the Honda dealership. There was the economy changed, and kind of some of the business dropped off, and people weren't bringing their cars in as much. So it went from my income went about half.
Wow.
Because it was hourly or flat rate. Is
per car.
Yeah, so you got paid by the work that you got done.
Interesting.
And
so it wasn't hourly. It was literally
there was like a $11 an hour hourly pay if you didn't meet or break the threshold of that.
Interesting. So like kind of like a pay for performance sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was going from like 80 hours a week down to 30 or 40.
Just because
because of the amount of work that was coming into the shop. Okay. And I just couldn't make it with my payments and everything that I needed to do. So I went and worked at one independent shop, and they said, oh yeah, we've got all this work lined up. And get there a couple weeks later, they're caught up. So then I went and found another shop and worked there for a while. And I started bouncing back and forth between those two. And so that way they could get a pile up of work and then
have you come relieve it essentially. Yeah. And then work yourself out of a job.
Yep. I got tired of doing that. So then I got a job with the Ames Schools and worked there for 3-4 years, something like that.
Okay. What were you doing there?
I was a custodian and then maintenance.
Okay. So. Is that what your dad did at Ames Schools?
He was in maintenance. He was a carpenter for the Ames Schools.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah.
That makes total sense.
And he was there for 30 years.
Okay.
So.
And did you like working in the schools?
It was okay. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun being around because I was working during the daytime.
That's what I was going to ask. Were you the night shift?
I was there I was there on the night shift for a while, for a couple of years, and then went to day shift, and so I like the day shift more.
That's what I was going to say. Did you like the day shift way more? Yeah. Just because you got to interact with people as opposed to just have an empty school kind of thing. Yeah. Do you have what was the wildest thing that you ran into? Do you know?
At the school?
Yeah. Is there a situation that sticks out?
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just fun. The lunchtime was the fun time because you'd be in there hanging out with the kids and waiting for them to make a mess to clean up.
Right. Which you knew was inevitable.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what day it was. Was there like a particular thing that they served for lunch where you knew like this is going to be one of those messy days, or was there?
Not really.
No,
there wasn't. Grapes were a problem because they don't sweep.
Right. They just roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something you'd never think of. If they'd cut them in half, it wouldn't be so bad. You get one flat side. But I would have never thought about that. But that's a very good point. Schools, don't be serving grapes unless you're going to be cutting them in half or quarters.
Any round fruit.
Yeah.
Small round fruit.
Blueberries.
Yep.
Absolute pain.
Yep.
Wouldn't have thought of that. Interesting. Okay. So you're working at the schools. You're liking it.
Yep.
When do you start? You said you were working for an inflatable?
Yeah, I did that while I worked at the schools. So on the weekends, I would go out and work setting up like bounce houses and slides and stuff like that.
Okay.
On the weekends.
And was that somebody in Ames that was doing that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And they're out of business. They've gone out of business since.
Okay.
But I started the laser tag business right towards the end of his business and was working with him and all the other inflatable companies and rental companies around the state.
Yeah. And so you said you didn't like working for him.
Yeah.
Why not? What was it?
I don't know if I want to go into that.
That's okay.
So.
You don't have to. I'm just saying, like, was it just was it a management style kind of thing?
Yeah, it was problems with his management. So,
right.
Yeah.
The way he just interacted with employees and potentially customers. And
Anybody that's worked for him would know this too, is every time you'd get paid, you'd have to race to get your check, to be the first one to get your check.
To make sure you got yours.
Then race to the bank, to his bank.
No.
And make sure that it's going to clear.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, always fun when you're questioning whether or not you're going to get paid for the work that you can't take back.
Yep.
Kind of a deal. And so when you were doing those events, though, was that like how long were the events that you? I have no idea what goes into an inflatable business at all. Obviously,
most of the time with inflatable rentals, it's a day, and you're there for anywhere from 2 to 6 hours.
And so you need to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
Monitoring, making sure that it doesn't.
For most of them. Some of them, like a backyard rental, you can drop it off, like a bounce house or something, drop it off, and give them instructions on how to run it, how to watch it.
Sure.
And so there'd be some of that. Then there'd be a lot of bigger events, town festivals and stuff like that we would go to and set up on Main Street or in a park or wherever.
And so were most of them bounce houses, or were like?
Well, he had mechanical bulls. He had rock walls, then in a bunch of different inflatables.
Okay.
And Euro bungees.
Okay. I was at one point there was a big like rush and craze of inflatable obstacle courses.
Oh yeah.
Was that part of it? Yeah. Yep. Okay. I was going to say, was there that during that?
Of those.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know what, I think it was probably social media that just kind of made them go viral, and it seemed like everybody was popping up a inflatable obstacle course. So I didn't know if you were in that era or not.
Yep.
Okay. So then at what point are you like, hey, I maybe here's this laser tag opportunity. Like I want to start my own laser tag.
Well, I was looking into other options. I was looking at maybe a rock wall or buying a Euro bungee or something like that. And, then I was talking with him, the guy I was working for, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to start something of my own. And
where did that come from? Do you know?
Just mainly the management of his business.
Okay.
And I wasn't real happy with that.
Yeah.
I like doing it. I like going out and doing the work and being out there working with the kids and setting it up and doing all that aspect of things. But
it was just not a great working environment. Yeah. Okay. Well, and so it's just interesting for me to hear that, because not everybody would be like, well, I can do this. Like I can start this.
Yeah.
You know, there's other people that'd be like, well, who else can I go work for?
Yeah.
But you're like, no, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching you do this poorly. Like I can do this better.
Yeah.
So not everybody thinks like that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's interesting that you were like, no, I think I can do this. So, sorry, you were looking at all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
And you were talking to him. Were you asking him kind of what you thought would complement well with his? Like you weren't really necessarily being like, I want to put you out of business, but in the back of your mind, you're maybe thinking, I'm going to put you out of business one day.
That was a little after I started the business that
realization
idea was going through my head.
But I think at the time you were probably in a more collaborative mode, shall we say. Okay. So you were talking to him being like, what do you think would complement? What do you not have, essentially? Yep. So you finally land on laser tag. Mm-hmm. Where does one find a laser tag setup? I feel like you're about to tell me about these interesting areas of the internet that I don't know about or something.
There's some trade shows that you can go to.
Really?
And learn about it. And
where are those trade shows typically?
Well, one was in Orlando.
Okay.
And the other one, which doesn't really have laser tag stuff, but it's amusement industry, is Gibsonton, Florida. And the one in Orlando is in November, and the one in Gibsonton is in February. And
they are just literally like amusement themed.
Yep. The one in Orlando is for the outdoor amusement business. So it involves theme parks, it's inflatable rental companies, carnivals. It also has arcade stuff. I mean, it's a huge, huge convention center. It's probably about the size of Collins, just the convention center.
Right.
And it's full. It's jam-packed
and
of
it's
stuff.
full of like inflatables, rides,
Yep.
like just interesting. I don't know why it never would have occurred to me that entire industry would have its own conference, but of course
Yeah.
it does. Like,
Yeah.
how else are you supposed to figure out
Yep.
what the latest? Interesting. Okay, so you go to, which one did you go to?
So I used to go to both, but the one in Orlando that's more towards the whole industry. So when I first started out, I didn't go to one of those.
Yeah.
I just talked to some other people in the business with rental business.
Like in the
And
state of Iowa
asked-
or?
yeah.
Okay.
And asked them about laser tag and what they thought of it, and nobody really had it. There was one other company out there that I don't know if they started before or after I did, but right around the same time. And anyway, I talked to all these other businesses, and I asked them about it, and they said, well, this is the stuff that we've been looking at. This is what we've been looking at. And I kind of did some comparing and ended up landing on what the equipment that I got. And the stuff I got right from the start is what I used right till the end of using it. So which
Yeah.
I've still got it sitting in my warehouse for sale, but
Yeah. Well, and so did you buy it new? Like, is there?
I bought it used actually.
I was going to say, I feel like there's a used market for this stuff too.
It was like a couple years old, and they'd gone through and replaced all the electronics in it. And I ran it for 6-7 years without having to do anything really to them. And then I went through and took them to a place in Council Bluffs that makes the electronics for most laser tag equipment. So
Random.
They make the chips and the car, all the internal parts for them, and then all these other companies that manufacture the guns then put their internals in them.
Interesting.
So there might be a little different programming, so they don't work with each other. But
Right. But
I just took it to them and said, "Hey, this is what I need," and
Yeah.
they said, "Oh yeah, we can do that." And
we can swap out what needs to be swapped out and make it all kind of talk to each other, sort of a
Yep.
situation.
Yep.
And so how did you find this used equipment? Like how did you find that? Like,
So
was it just
the manufacturer
Okay.
had a used set, and that's who I got it from.
interesting?
So
Where are these manufactured? Can I ask?
that one they've moved several times, and I don't know where they're at anymore. And
In true Carnival fashion.
they were new owners, and there's new owners now. They got bought out,
Yeah.
and I don't know much about them anymore. I haven't followed that business
Yeah.
that much.
But, well, it's not your
So,
core business, and you've
yeah.
kind of moved away from it,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter
Yeah.
anymore. But okay, so you buy this equipment,
Mhm.
and you're still working with this guy at this point.
Mhm.
What does it look like? Like, do you remember your first laser tag event?
Oh, yeah.
What was it? Where was it?
It was down in Des Moines at Raccoon River Valley Park,
Okay.
and it was I think it was for Hy-Vee. They did a fun run down there, and we were set up down there at that park. And the year that we did that, there was a really bad windstorm, 70-mile-an-hour winds that came through, and
Perfect.
Yeah.
Mixes
Yeah.
well with inflatables,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so walk me through like what it's like setting up essentially a mobile
Yeah.
laser tag sort of a thing. You know, every time I've ever done, I was a big laser tag person. Like when we would go to basketball tournaments and stuff growing up, go-karts and laser tag, like
Yeah.
immediately wherever we were, we'd find it.
yeah.
And you'd have just a team of us and our coaches and they're laser tagging away. But so when I think of it, it was usually at an arcade. It was like a permanent setup.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
not the case with yours. So
With the mobile, I used inflatable paintball bunkers. So it looked like a paintball field with laser tag.
sure.
And the guns that I have a 300-yard range. So, I mean, they're fairly accurate to within like a 2-foot bubble.
Yeah.
So,
And so could you do that daylight, night, like
daylight, night,
anytime?
wherever. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then like how many players?
If we were set up inside, reflective floors are a problem because it's like a
It'll-
TV remote. It'll
Yeah.
bounce off of things. So,
So even if it's just like a really shiny floor that's well waxed or something.
Yep.
Interesting.
gloss or matte paint on the walls makes a difference.
Oh.
So,
Stuff that you just don't think about.
yep.
Interesting. Okay, so then like how many people could be in a laser tag battle at once?
I had 16 guns.
Okay.
So
It could be pretty.
Yep. And then when I had everything rebuilt, I had the 16 guns and then 20 zombie sensors. So there could be 20 zombies and 16 shooters.
Yeah.
So.
So it could get pretty Western out there, I
Yep.
guess, at that point.
Yep.
Okay. So you're able to successfully do your first event. You kind of already have an in with this guy who's already operating.
Yep.
Are you getting booked like every weekend?
Well, not exactly. That's why I was still working at the school at the time. So I would take all of my vacation and use it for doing events. And then in the wintertime, I would plow snow for the school, and that would get to be comp time. So then I'd use that through the summer also. So
Yeah. You were just trying to find as many days as you possibly could to be able to do it.
Yep.
So basically what I'm saying is like you had enough demand, you just didn't have enough time off.
Yeah.
Essentially at that point. Okay. So then at what point do you decide that like you need to go pursue this
and leave
laser
the school.
tag? Yeah.
Well, when it was just laser tag, it was about a year. I was still working at the school, and then I bought a rock wall and was doing the same thing, working with all these inflatable companies around the state. And then some of them said, we need a mechanical bull. And I said, okay, well, I'll buy one. And I got one and added that to the inventory. And then the Iowa Speedway had me bringing a bull down there 4 weeks a year for 2 days each weekend for the races. And that started
how do you get
conflicting.
connected with something like that? Are they coming
they
out
just
looking
contacted
for?
me.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was going to say,
yeah.
do you have like a website that says mechanical bull
I haven't
Central
really done too
Iowa?
much actual real pursuit of business. It's just organic.
Word of
People
mouth.
finding the website, word of mouth. So
Interesting. Okay, sorry. You were saying
But,
that
yeah.
started to conflict with.
so that started conflicting with all the other events because of the dates
Yeah.
and just not having 2 bulls. So I bought another bull.
Of course you did. Have a whole herd.
Yeah. So we had the laser tag, the rock wall, the bulls, and
And where are you storing this stuff at this point?
when I first started out, I just had an enclosed trailer that was sitting in my backyard at my apartment.
Okay.
And and then I had a storage unit for a little while, and then I went in with a sound equipment guy who ended up moving over here with me, and then now has left
Yeah.
and left all his equipment. So I've got a ton of audio gear sitting around.
Perfect.
And then there was a inflatable business that's in Ames that the 3 of us shared a warehouse,
Okay.
a 5,000 square foot warehouse.
So you had somewhere to store stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. I'm like, you're
Yeah.
getting this herd of bulls. I know you're not in Collins
Yep.
at this point. Where are you putting this stuff? Okay. So you're up to 2 mechanical bulls now.
Yep.
Because you have the demand.
Yep.
Is it just you at this point?
I had about 4 or 5 employees at the time. They
Yeah.
were just part-time.
Right.
And
And where do you find them? This is one of those things where I'm just like, who?
Well,
How-
a lot of them were friends or friends of friends or kids of friends.
that were just looking for a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Crazy. Okay. So you buy your second mechanical bull. At this point, you have what? 2 mechanical bulls.
2 bulls.
Laser tag.
Yep.
Anything else?
The rock wall.
Rock wall.
Yep.
And typically, are those things all going to the same location on a weekend?
Well, no. They're going, everyone's going a different way usually.
Right.
So I had to have people that I could trust to do that.
Yeah.
Vehicles that could make it there. And
And when you started this out, were you thinking, I'm going to need 3 trucks with 3 trailers with 3 people?
no, when I
that
first
can-"
started it out with just a laser tag, I was like, I just need one truck.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe with a topper
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it escalated quickly. Was this
Yeah.
all within like a 1-year span that you went from?
No.
Okay.
This was over about 3 years.
Okay.
And after about 3 years, I bought some inflatables. I had 2 bounce houses, a slide, an obstacle course, and a bungee run.
And are you still with the original guy?
No.
Okay.
No, this is after gotten away from him, quit doing business with him.
Yep.
But I was working with all the other inflatable companies around the state. There were, let's see, 3 main ones that I worked with.
How many are there?
So
Okay.
there's a couple dozen
Okay.
right now.
Yep.
And I mean, there's some that I don't know about. So I'm sure
There's new ones that pop up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
All right. So you have this fleet of bowls. And then you buy some inflatables on top of it.
And I bought the inflatables so that we could do our own events rather than having to go out with just to keep things busy.
Sure.
So that I was booking events because that other company was struggling that I had worked for and starting to go away. And a lot of the other companies that I was working with were all kind of ganging up and trying to take all the business. So,
So there was an opportunity.
Yeah.
If you will. And so when you say do your own events, you mean what?
So take everything, like the whole batch of inflatables and a bowl and rock wall, and be able to do just all of that.
And who is booking you at this point? Like who is it that...
Town festivals, churches, schools were the main ones.
Yeah.
We did a few fairs. We did the Guthrie County Fair and the Sac County Fair, pretty much from when I first started it. So,
and again, those are just kind of word of mouth at that point. You haven't advertised.
Word of mouth, or website. I did send out some mailers that Nathan helped with.
Yeah, he told me.
Yep.
He told me. He remember sitting up in your apartment in Ames, writing out that very first Dan Kennedy style sales offer letter, essentially.
Yeah. And he was surprised when we sent it out how much response I actually got from
That's what he said. He said basically you booked your entire first summer off of that sales letter, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
And so you were specifically trying to get into those fairs, sort of a thing, get the fair circuit.
Yep.
Okay. Talk to me about insurance. Was that difficult to get?
Well, at first it was easy because with just the laser tag, the most insurance companies would do that, but because it's a very low risk.
Yeah.
But once I got the rock wall, then the one that I had been with said, "Well, we don't really want people climbing 20 feet in the air, suspended by a cable that we just don't know enough about it."
Right.
So, and the rock wall I had was a manufactured wall. They've made hundreds of them. So thousands of them. So
there was precedent on the market, essentially.
Yeah, they were the best out there to work with. And
sure. If
you ever had problems with it, they knew exactly what to do, and quick about getting you parts and everything. But where were we?
Insurance. So
insurance,
Rockwall was a problem. I got to imagine mechanical bull was a problem.
Yeah, mechanical bull is a big problem.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't have them anymore.
Yeah.
Because the laser tag was about $1,500 a year at the time when I first started out,
which is very reasonable
for $1 million of general liability.
Yeah, very reasonable.
And then when I added the rock wall, it was like $3,000 a year, something like that.
Total, or just by total.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not as bad of an increase either.
And then with the bulls, it was $5,000 a piece.
Oh yeah.
It didn't start out that way. When I first got them, it was just like the rock wall or the laser tag. It wasn't that high. It wasn't that bad. It went based on your
history,
record, your history. I've still, to this day, never had a claim on that policy.
Right.
And don't plan on ever having one.
Yeah. Knock on wood.
It can happen.
Yes, of course. but that's why you have the insurance.
That's why we have it.
You know, that is the point.
But
Interesting.
When it was $10,000 for 2 bulls and then add on the $3,000, $4,000 for the rest, and it was just getting to be too much.
Yeah.
And for what it was making.
Right. I was going to say that's where you start putting pencil to paper and pushing the numbers of how much per event, how many events do you need just to pay for the friggin' insurance?
Yeah.
At that point. Yikes.
Yep. So I sold one of the bulls to someone else that I knew in Iowa that when I needed it, I could rent it from them, and then they could do the insurance, and I wouldn't have to
worry about it.
worry about it as much.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's what I did there. But then the adding the inflatables and then starting to get into the rides, we were into a totally different type of insurance.
Yeah.
And different companies that handle different things. And so like the bulls, there's one company that insures them.
In the U.S., I imagine.
In the U.S.
Right.
Yeah. And it's actually they're out of London, actually.
Interesting. Is it like Lloyd's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lloyd's freaking insures anything.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
They're the only ones that insure bulls.
Yeah.
So then they only work with one company in the U.S.
Sure.
And then all those other companies in the U.S., the insurance companies, go to that insurance company.
Yes.
And then they mark it up a little bit.
Of course. They got to take their cut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been with that company that works with Lloyd's directly.
Right.
And
okay.
been real happy with them. But
so you have the bulls, but you're selling them because insurance is ridiculous.
Yep.
You have the inflatables. You're still running the laser tag. That's all still going well.
Yep. Oh, when I had the bulls, I had a meltdown also.
What?
Which is, it's got 2 arms on it, and it's got 8 pedestals.
Okay.
And you jump and duck to avoid the
Yes.
bars that are going around. It's kind of like a wipeout game.
Yes.
And then they also had an attachment for one of the bulls that had a single log, and then it had 4 pedestals.
Uh-huh.
And with the mechanical bull base, you can go up, down, and spin around.
Yes. So you put it on the spin.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you could control that with a joystick. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of fun.
Yes. And so you basically just put a person in there and see how long they can stay on their feet.
You
kind
get
of
4
a deal.
kids in there, and you're trying to knock them down.
Yes.
So your goal as an operator is to knock the kids off the pedestals.
Right. Meanwhile,
their goal is to not get knocked down.
Yes, exactly. I could see where that would be fun.
That was a lot of fun to run that.
Yes. And so, but again, like insurance-wise,
it was like a bull.
Mm-hmm.
And the just watching somebody else run it, I was always sitting there cringing my teeth.
Yeah.
So that was why I got rid of those. Is
right.
The insurance and also watching someone else run them. I just didn't feel like they paid as close of attention. So I want to get into some less risk items.
Right. Some less stressful items kind of a thing.
Yep.
Okay. So you have these. When did you decide like the more traditional carnival rides were kind of the way that you want it to go?
That was a conversation with all the different inflatable companies that I was working with at the time. And I said, what else do you guys want to have that you don't want to insure? Because inflatable insurance and mechanical ride insurance is different. And for an inflatable company to add a mechanical ride, a lot of times their insurance jumps.
Like doubles?
Yeah,
triples?
because what I've found is that the insurance companies that will insure inflatables don't like mechanical rides.
Why?
Because they don't
understand them.
They don't feel they're as safe as inflatables.
Okay.
And then the opposite is true with insurance companies that insure rides, is that mechanical rides, they feel that inflatables are unsafe.
Okay.
Because you can't control what's going on inside of them.
Right. And
I agree with that.
I was going to say,
I think inflatables are so much more unsafe. Even though you think, oh, it's just an inflatable thing, there's like a big pillow.
Right.
There's a lot more things that can go wrong because you can't control what the kids are doing.
I was about to
With
say.
a ride, they're seat belted in.
Mm-hmm.
They do the same thing each time around, and you know the outcome.
Yes.
So
I was going to say.
not to say that there can't be an accident on a ride.
Sure.
But
of course there can. There can be an accident on just about anything. You
Yep.
can fall off a curb walking down the street.
Yep.
But yeah, you don't have, like you said, the added variable of 15 kids in there doing whatever they're going to be doing.
Bouncing off each other. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, and there's not a lot you can do as an operator to prevent that.
Yeah.
Okay, so those two companies are separate. Mm-hmm. So basically...
each will insure either way, or either type of equipment. But for back then, it was if an inflatable company got like a bull, they didn't want to pay $5,000 a year and only rent it out like 4 or 5 times.
Right.
That's where, with me working with all of them, I rented it out myself, and they could get it whenever they wanted, or whenever it was available, and it kept it busy.
You were essentially an a la carte for whatever ride they didn't want to have to be liable for.
Right. So I asked them what else they would want, and they said, well, we want like a Tubs of Fun or teacup ride type ride. And so I got a Tubs of Fun, And
Which those
that
are
was
the
back in-
spinny ones, right?
I bought that one new in 2013.
Are they spinny?
Yeah.
Like you sit in them and they spin? Yeah.
Yep.
Lots of puke.
Yep.
Okay, so was that like the number one requested one? Was they wanted something
That was
like
one that everybody kind of said, yeah, that's what we want to have, because it's easy to, I mean, it was an easy setup, and you could do it with one person.
Okay.
And run it off of a small generator, and
Yeah, because that's something that you do have to think about. You don't always have like super great power hookups, accessibility, like you said, the labor of being able, one person versus needing maybe 2 or 3 for a more complex ride, I would imagine, or something like that. Out of curiosity, how much does a ride like that cost? Like to purchase? You're not purchasing new, I'm assuming. Maybe this is like a used.
No, I bought the tubs new.
Okay.
I bought the ballistic new.
I have no idea what the used versus new Carnival ride scene's like.
I believe a new Tubs of Fun, which is like a year or 2 years out to get built. So if you order it now, it's going to be a couple years before you get it. Yeah. Yeah.
Where are they manufactured?
Here in Iowa.
Oh.
So there's 2 different manufacturers right now. One is from New Jersey, one is from here in Iowa. And I've always bought all mine from the guy here in Iowa.
Sure. Where is he?
Shaler, Iowa. It's up near Storm Lake.
Wild.
So
my husband's Willie's from up that way.
Oh,
so.
is he? Yeah.
Random. Okay, sorry. Continue. So he's 2 years out of.
Yeah. It's a year or 2 to get anything new.
Sure.
And so anyway, I bought that new from him in 2013.
Yeah, and like how much does that run? Again, I have no concept.
I think they're $40,000.
Yeah.
For one of those now.
And they seat how many?
16, I think.
Okay, so like 4 in a cup?
3.
3 in a cup?
3, yeah, times. So.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, man. And then, so is each piece, like is each new ride have its own separate insurance policy?
No, it's all one big
policy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because otherwise, I was curious as to each one probably has a different risk profile, if you will.
Yep.
So I didn't know if they would make you insure those all separately, but no, it's just an umbrella sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
and the companies I'm with now just likes mechanical rides. They don't like inflatables.
Sure.
And when that was one of the deciders that made me get rid of the inflatables.
Yeah.
Was insurance.
Right.
And also COVID was the other thing, because at the time it's how do you disinfect a inflatable,
right,
to be able to be used.
Germy children.
Yeah. And because most chemicals that you'd use on it to disinfect would take the UV coating off.
Yeah.
On the inflatables, and then it makes them wear out faster.
Right. Okay. So you buy this Buckets of Fun. Mm-hmm. Is that what it's called? Buckets of Fun. So you buy that one because you are essentially attempting to be the a la carte of mechanical rides, is what it sounds like.
Yep.
So that's your first one. And is that one basically rented out every weekend then?
It was out quite a bit. I don't remember what the...
Are you still in the warehouse at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Over in Ames.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So you're still in the warehouse in Ames.
Yeah.
This one's going well. Did you just buy that one first, or did you go for something else as well? Was there something else they requested? No, it was just the
Tubs of Fun. So I had the Tubs of Fun, the inflatables, the rock wall, the bowls, the meltdown, laser tag.
Yeah, it's just growing. Yeah. Your pile of things is just growing.
I was looking at that warehouse that we were in, and I took up a third of it, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I was running out of space. The guy with the inflatables needed more space too, and the sound guy, well, he didn't really need more space. He needed less, and to get rid of some stuff. But
sure. Okay.
I'm sure he'll probably watch the podcast.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Hi, Jay. So if you, at that point, are you looking for more space?
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I started looking for more space and looked at a lot of different small towns because there's cheaper properties.
Yes.
At the time.
Yeah.
And ended up looking at this one and it fit the needs at that time. And luckily some other stuff has opened up that I've purchased while we've been here to be able to continue expansion.
Yeah. What was your first, like, what was on your checklist of what you needed at that time? Do you remember?
I needed indoor storage space mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So main floor, indoor, large space to be able to park stuff and put equipment. So
Sure.
just
And
to
then,
protect it through the winter mostly.
Right.
So.
Yeah, because and winters are hard on things left outside, as you well know.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when did you buy that building? Do you know? 18, 17?
It was 15, I think.
I'd say it was before I got here, and I got here in 19.
Yeah.
So, okay, so 2015, you're able to buy this building.
Yep.
At that point, you still have all the laser tag stuff,
Yep.
I assume.
Yeah, and we were still doing laser tag
And the bowls.
we had the bowls and meltdown and
So all of that stuff, plus the buckets of fun.
yep.
Had you expanded into other mechanical rides at that point?
No, I hadn't really. And then after moving here, I think I went another year and then started buying some other small rides.
Okay. And was that more with the intention of being like, I don't need to be the a la carte anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I can just bring the
It
fun.
was more of, we can just do the whole event.
And what made you shift in that way?
Just sustainability of being able to keep in business and pay the bills and everything and
Sure.
not have to work for someone else. And
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your pricing then when you first started out.
it was too low.
But so I kid you not, almost every single person who has had something to price that has been on this podcast has said
Started out too low.
too low. And like for the first 5 years, too low, essentially. That's like a totally normal, I feel like everybody does that.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point you just get sick of working so hard for nothing kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so tell me, like, how did you have any idea in the beginning, like, what to price it at? Were you just basing it off of what other people were
Based
pricing
it off
at?
of what other things were renting at the time.
Yeah.
Like rides or inflatables or whatever.
Because did you have a lot of competition at that point?
Not really.
Okay.
There was one other laser tag company that did rentals, and they were up in northwestern Iowa or up near the Minnesota border anyway.
Yeah, probably like north central-ish.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't like you sat down and you're like, this is my cost of production. Here's all the things.
But there were also companies that came from all over the place
Sure.
to Iowa and did some events.
Yeah.
So.
Just because.
And then while I had the laser tag, I worked with a booking agent, a national booking agency out of New York. And they would book stuff in Colorado, Montana, Wisconsin. And we'd drive out there and do those things. And
literally
I was
make
always
no money.
shocked at how much they would spend for us to come and do a 4-hour event at a college.
Yeah. Well, and so at that point when they're doing it, they're setting the price or?
No, I would set the price of what it costs for us to do.
Okay.
And then they would add $500 on it or something like that, or 10%
for
or
their
something
cut.
for their cut. And then all the contract checks, everything was done through them.
Yeah. And where do you think you went? Like, what were you missing where you weren't making any money? Like,
at the beginning, you mean?
Like, what costs were you not factoring in, or did you not know of? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I wasn't not making money at that time.
You just weren't making enough.
Yeah.
For as much as I know.
I was doing more birthday parties, backyard rentals, which they're easy. So working with the same 10, 15 kids all day long for 2 to 4 hours is easy compared to going to an event and you have to teach every kid how to play it, how to use the guns and go through all the safety every single time.
Sure.
And you're set up for 4 to 8 hours at a time.
Right.
And so it was like $300 for a birthday party. And you could get a game truck, the video game trailers, for $300 for a 2-hour party.
Right.
So I was like, well, I'll just go into competition with them with laser tag and have my pricing around that.
Yeah. So you were strictly basing it off of market competition,
Yeah.
essentially comparables.
Whatever the closest thing that I could figure
Yes.
to be. I mean, the game truck, you drive up, you plug it in, or start the generator, and it's ready to go.
Yeah.
With us, we had to go there 2 hours early,
Yes.
get all the inflatable course set up, and then get the guns and everything all laid out.
Many additional steps, additional labor, things like that.
Yeah.
So basically you were forgetting to factor in
Yeah.
all of that, the additional hours required kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Like I
But
said,
I also found that you price it at $400 for, back then, you're at $400 for a 2-hour party, and people would get the game truck instead.
right.
So
that maybe wasn't your market anyways. And that's fine. It's just one of those things you figure out, sort of a deal.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like I said, I think it's super common with business owners, especially as they get into it,
Yeah.
figuring out the pricing and eventually getting fed up with, working as hard as you do to not see as much of a return as you should be making. Okay. So you start deciding, I'm going to buy more rides so that we can just essentially be our own standalone thing. I forgot to ask, were you named Gotcha Games at this point? Where did that come from?
Well, I started that because of the laser tag. And so it's just kind of
gotcha.
stuck. So a lot of the signs and everything that are and the logos on my shirt and everything all say Gotcha Amusements now.
Okay.
And I'm slowly changing everything
To
to
Gotcha
that.
Amusements?
Yeah.
Well, sorry that I
'Cause-
introduced
well-
you incorrectly.
People get confused.
Yes.
They've
fair.
heard of Gotcha Games. We've been around for 14 years. So
Does it seem like it's been?
No.
Does it seem like it's been 14 years at this point? Yeah, that's kind of wild.
And it's been Gotcha Games the whole time. But when I'm booking fairs and festivals, they sometimes are confused that it's a carnival. They think
Right.
you've got games. Where do we go for rides? Or they call me for just games. And I say, well, we don't do just games.
Yeah.
We've got
We're
carnival
much
rides.
more than
and-
that.
Yeah, we're a full-blown carnival. And
Yes. Okay. So you buy this building in 2015.
Yep.
You have this whole lineup of all these things. What's your next ride that you purchase?
I think it was a swing, a little tiny swing. And it was for kids 75 pounds and under. So it was a little lightweight.
It's the youngins.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get that. And then at what point do you make the shift and you're like, we are a full-blown carnival?
Well,
like,
I
we
was
can offer
I was
this
doing the inflatables and the rides together as
Yeah.
a package.
So it could
So
be.
we were doing fairs and town festivals and stuff at the time.
And at this point, are you
Somewhere around then is when we started doing Lincoln Highway Days over in Nevada.
okay?
And it was just the whole package, everything that we had going there.
Right.
And I was learning that was really more the direction that I wanted to go with the business, was everything or nothing.
Why?
Because you got 10 trucks going 10 different directions. You have to have 2 people with each truck. And just the cost and the logistics of doing all that versus to do, back then, it was like 4 trucks to do everything at one place. And about 2/3 of the people. So
it just made more sense.
Yeah.
And your overhead was exponentially lower.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we weren't making quite as much as going individual rentals because it would be package discounts and stuff like that. But
You weren't making as much gross.
yeah,
But net, you
But,
were
yeah.
making more.
Right.
Which is what matters.
Right.
It's one
Right.
thing to grow your top line revenue. It's another thing to have the money in the bank at the end of the year.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you booked out every summer at this point, or are you still kind of?
Yeah, we're pretty much fully booked. There's some that change up each year, but there's some that are just every year they do this. They have us come and do it. And
Yeah. And it's already
what are
set.
you going to bring us? Okay. What's the price? All right.
Right.
That's it. That's all that there is to it.
Sure.
So,
They've been working with you. They were happy with
Yeah.
it. It's easy.
Yeah.
They don't have to go look for somebody else.
Yep.
I imagine most of the stuff you're doing is in Iowa.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah. We don't
that's
do
the other
anything
thing.
out of state.
You're not,
I've tried doing some stuff out of state, but we used to do a lot of stuff in Nebraska because there was an inflatable company we worked with over there that did a lot of stuff with us. And we would go down to Missouri every rare once in a while, and we'd go to Wisconsin about 6 times a year. And then Colorado with that booking agent was about twice a year, and Montana was once a year.
Okay. But so now it's just basically Iowa.
But yeah, now I don't work with that
The booking
agent anymore. And I don't work with I don't rent anything out, so I don't work with any of the inflatable companies anymore.
Sure. You got your own.
We still communicate and
no hard
friendly.
Feelings. Yeah. It's just the business has evolved.
Yep.
It's gone in a different direction.
We share business rather than try and
collaborate. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, and it's like you said, for you logistically, just to take everything to one place and it's a lot easier. Yeah. That kind of thing. So when did you add like concessions?
That was fairly recent. In 2018, there was a Carnival that went out of business. Well, actually, one that went out of business, one that quit coming to the state. And when that happened, I was like, well, there's going to be a void there. So I decided I was going to start a second unit for 2019. Mm-hmm. Or, 2020.
Good timing.
Yeah. And so I bought a food trailer. I bought a whole nother set of rides.
And this is like late 2019 that you did this?
I had 18 rides at that point.
In 2019?
At the end of 2019, I had 18 rides all put together. So that in 2020, we could do 2 units.
Yep, you were ready.
I had the crew lined up. I had a guy that was going to run the second unit that was good. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit.
Yes.
Then after that, 21, the other guy's dad passed away. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't able to work that next year because he had so much to deal with his dad passing. So
the dream of 2 crews kind of.
Then I still had to run 2 crews because we had all these bookings.
Yes.
And had all the rides, all the equipment, everything was ready to go other than the staffing. And had somebody run the other unit, and we were just struggling the whole summer because of staff.
Of 21.
Yeah.
And was that like you just couldn't find people? Like what happened?
Well, we had quite a few people, but the other unit wasn't being run the way that I wanted it to be, the other set of rides.
You didn't have somebody.
So I couldn't be in 2 places at once.
Right.
And so as soon as 21 was over, I was like, well, I'm going to pick which events that we're going to keep and then help the others find somebody else.
Yeah. And when you went back to pick those events, were you picking them for profitability?
Yeah. Okay. I was picking the more profitable events.
Right.
And
so walk me through COVID, though. You're geared up to go with 2
We're all geared up
you are literally geared up. You've made this like huge investment into additional rides. You've made an investment into personnel at that point, lining all of that up. Mm-hmm. Everything shuts down in March. Mm-hmm. When it shut down in March, were you thinking it's fine?
Yeah, I was thinking, we'll get opened up. We did 5 events that year.
Okay. How many did you have booked?
Well, it'd be 2 a week for 3 months. So.
Dang. Okay. But what people don't realize, you still had to pay insurance, like a full years of insurance on every, your overhead did not.
So my insurance company worked with me on that. They decided to work with all of their clients on the insurance. And it was about.
Well, you were all in the same boat.
About the middle of the year, they decided that they would put everybody's insurance on hold because nobody was able to operate, and then tack that little bit on. So it was like 4 months that got put on hold and then got tacked on to the next year.
Sure.
So it extended it 4 months, but you had a pause where you weren't covered.
Okay.
So you couldn't go out and do events, which was fine because
there was to be done.
There was nothing to be done. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
That's big.
Yeah, we did one fair, and we did 4th of July. And I was trying to think of what the other.
I think you did Maxwell.
Yeah, we did Maxwell because they don't care.
Yeah. Well, as they had, that was market in the park. No, but they didn't care. Like that was real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a big ouch then.
And then we did one laser tag rental at a college at Drake.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to think of what the other one was. But anyway,
it was an ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch year.
The amount that we made in 2020 didn't pay for anything.
No. So at that point, you then had to go to Marshalltown and to essentially keep the lights on.
Worked at the dealership for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Just to keep the wheels greased, essentially, at that point.
Yep.
So then going into 21, you were kind of forced into running the two crews, whether you were set up for it or not, just as a matter of survival.
Those that were booked in 2020, then
Carried
we lost
over.
their deposit. Well, because they make a deposit, so that deposit kind of carried us some ways through 2020, but
way.
it just, and then 21 acknowledging their deposits and
Yes, and carrying that over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ouch.
There was a lot that changed in my contracts at that time.
I bet.
Because I'd never planned on something like that happening.
Nobody did.
Yeah.
Well, and when you know, you do better kind of thing. But you didn't know. You can't help it. You didn't know. Ouch. Ouch, ouch. I know there's a lot of people that struggled in 2020, but that's a big ouch. That's pretty awesome that you're still standing today.
The other event that we did was Shaler, Iowa, where
where they make them.
Yeah. They used to have, they still do. They have popcorn days.
Uh-huh.
And they canceled popcorn days, but the fire department still wanted to do something. So we went up there and set up for that. And
nice. And it worked out.
Yep.
Okay.
And I was up there at the time. We were doing some refurbishing on some of our rides. Mm-hmm. Just because we're down. There was the EIDL money or the PPP money.
Right.
So I was trying to keep some people employed working. So I took them up there and we were redoing rides. Mm-hmm. And then I was doing some work for him too, the manufacturer up there, doing sandblasting. I went and bought a bunch of sandblasting equipment and kept it up at his place and did sandblasting on used rides that he was redoing.
Right, that he was going to repaint, refinish, whatever.
Yep. So that helped with keeping those people too busy.
Yeah, well, because there's
giving them some more work.
There's the balance of that too. Of how hard it is to find good employees and keep them and everything else, and so you want to keep them and keep them busy and not have them go look elsewhere because.
And not a single one of them works for me anymore. So.
Oh no! Well, isn't that how it works out, kind of thing? Like you just. You try to do right by people, man, and you try to keep things working. But employee turnover is tough for everybody, and you do what you can to try to keep the ones around, but it doesn't always work out, as you know. But okay, so you move into 21, still a little bit of an ouch year, it sounds like. So then 2022, you pull back a little bit and you go back to one.
Even
crew.
in 2021, you would expect that people are excited to get out because they've been in the house all.
They weren't yet.
It just wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't good. There. It wasn't there.
It's slowly been coming back, but it's still not quite there.
No.
So, I don't know. This year might be different. So
hard to say. We're not there yet. So your busy season really starts about Memorial Day weekend, would you say?
Memorial Day to Labor Day is typically.
And is that when you pull out for your first event is Memorial Day?
So the 31st of May here, we go down to Mitchellville.
Okay, and that's where it kicks off. That's our first event,
yep.
And then, so luckily Mitchellville's not super far from here, so if something breaks, you're not very far from home.
Yep, it's nice and close. I like doing Mitchellville because it's nice and close. It's not super busy, so we can train people and get people
off the cobwebs.
Get everything worked out.
Sure.
So
gotcha. That's nice. And like I said, the proximity to the shop is not, as far away if something really goes devastatingly wrong.
Yeah.
But so as you moved into 22, 23, you're recovering a little bit. You're kind of finding your groove again. As we go into 24, do you have like new rides or anything? Or is there a new event you're doing? Or is it all repeat offenders?
Well, at the end of, let's see, I'm trying to think of what year I did that. 22.
Mm-hmm.
I bought a brand new drop tower down at the Carnival trade show down in Florida, in Tampa or Gibsonton, and then it came from Brazil, so it had to have some extra inspections done on it.
Sure.
And getting that lined up was not going so well in 22 or 21, 23. Well, no, 22. It was, so I bought that in 21. And then 22 it sat. And then 23 we ran it.
Okay.
And so all of 22 I was having trouble getting the right person out there to do the inspection.
Interesting. Like from the state of Iowa?
No, it's a independent inspector.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was engineering paperwork that had to be sent off. So that inspection had to be done. Then it had to go to that engineer and then come back with the paperwork and then have the state inspect it. And
Sure.
just getting all that lined up wasn't working. So last year we got it all done. And when the state guy came, he looked at it and he goes, well, that bolt's not great. He's not an engineer. The engineer's already signed off on it and said that it's safe. The independent inspector who looks at ASTM standards said it was safe. The manufacturer said it was safe. And then the state inspector came through, who's not an engineer.
Yes.
And says, oh, this, and this have to be done. These bolts aren't graded. They need to be replaced. And the manufacturers sent a letter stating that they are what they need to be and that they are safe that way. And so then we went through and had to replace probably 80% of the bolts on it.
Oh my gosh. Those probably weren't cheap bolts either.
No.
Like they were.
No. And it was probably 100 or 200 bolts that had to be replaced. And,
of course.
Yeah.
But
anyway, we got all that done. And then, I agree with the state inspector on that, on replacing those, because they're graded, so you know what their capabilities are.
Right.
The bolts that the manufacturer had put in there were ungraded industrial bolts, which should be sufficient.
Yeah. But in a case like that, and also understanding if someone's not in Iowa and listening to this, state inspectors were going to be hyper vigilant that year too, coming off of Adventureland with the death and the injury and all of that stuff. Like they had a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, shall we say, and rightly so, you know, given the circumstances.
Yeah.
But
and there's been some change up in the inspectors that are there.
Yes.
Now.
Well, I've seen it on my side with the food inspection. I don't know if you've seen it on yours because your whole thing's inspected and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
There's been a
lot.
Well,
we have food health inspector.
I know, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you've seen that on your side with them. There's been a lot of turnover in like the health inspectors of recent as well. Yeah. I think that's just kind of in nature of everybody right now is experiencing a lot of turnover, and so. It's just, it depends on who you get and their temperament and their mood and everything else as to how it goes. But okay, so as you look forward, like in the next 12 months in this 2024 season, is there anything like you're particularly excited about that you have coming up? Or are you just like, I really hope the wheels don't fall off this
I'm ready to be out there and doing events.
Yeah.
We've got some stuff that we're doing here at the shop. That fixing up some of the equipment that is just about done. So, I mean, we're almost ready to hit the road.
Yes.
But
you're chomping at the bit.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And so is there you're not doing anything new, or you do it like
we're doing some new stuff. We're doing Cherokee County Fair, which is new, instead of Eldora, the Hardin County Fair. And that... A lot of that, it keeps us in an area where we're at, so we don't have to travel as long a distances.
Sure.
Which is something I've been trying to figure out, too, is ways to shorten travel.
Yeah, maximize.
So,
maximize.
Because it takes us 3 trips with 8 trucks.
Right.
To go anywhere.
It's wild.
And, it's only 9 rides and 3 game trailers and a food trailer. But all the campers, the generator,
$5 diesel,
all the backup stuff that we have to bring along with us.
Right.
really adds up.
Yes.
So
And like I said, $5
yeah,
diesel.
$5 diesel. Yeah.
Makes
Hopefully it stays where it is right now.
Yeah.
Or lower.
Or lower. I'm not going to hold my breath. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. And labor's getting more expensive too.
Yeah.
So.
All of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how long do you want to keep doing this?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's a year by year sort of a thing.
Yeah.
You kind of have to.
Yeah.
It's just, you never know what the year's going to bring.
Yep.
You
There might be some changes here in the near future. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Of like upsizing, downsizing.
Probably not upsizing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Well, and you don't always have to grow either. You know, that's one thing. Like if you find a size of business that works for you.
Yep.
And you like just maximize and optimize that, there's no reason that you need to have, 35 rides and have to deal with the dog and pony show that goes with all of that and the staff that it takes to run it and everything else. So if you found it and it works for you.
Yeah, and right now I'm pretty happy with where we're at. And the tough part is just finding something new each year, because I try and change something out every year.
Right.
So that we have something different for everybody to come and see. So it kind of adds to the intrigue of going to see the carnival, see what's new.
Yeah, you don't know. Yeah, what are you going to see new this year that you didn't see last time?
Yep.
Well, cool. So if people want to come find you, if they maybe like want to, you might be fully booked already, but let's just say that they want to try and book you for something. Where should they go?
GotchaGamesIowa.com.
GotchaGamesIowa.com. And are you guys, you're on social media?
Yeah, there's a Gotcha Games Facebook page too.
Okay. So either of those, you can probably figure out how to contact you if you really need to.
Yep.
Does that sound good?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, Matt, thanks for sitting down and talking to me today. I hope it wasn't too terrible.
It's fine.
Cool. Well, thanks for being the neighbor too.
Yeah.
If you ever need anything,
it's nice having good neighbors.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. If you don't have the tool, we have the tool.
Yeah.
So it's pretty handy. But anyways,
yeah.
All right.
Between the two of us, we probably do have about everything.
We do. Tools. Anything you could possibly need, we probably can get it done. So anyways, all right. Thanks, guys.